Hi guys. So for today's interview, I decided to try something different. I want to discuss my experiences as well as Maz's experiences with growing up in a South Asian household and the pressures of marriage and religion and culture. So with me, my story is I grew up in a family of eight, and my older two brothers were made to marry two women that they'd never met at the age of 16 and 18, respectively. And I knew I was next. So what I did was I left home at the age of 21 and I was homeless for 2 months and then went off to uni where I was trying to figure out who I was and what I was doing with my life, and learning as I got to uni all the abuse that I experienced as a child, and that it wasn't love, that it was actually abuse. And yeah, and over to you, Mass.
So my name's Maz. I'm 27 and I currently live in Paris, but I'm from the UK. So at around 16 and 17, I also left home. I was pressured into marriage. I left home at that age because my parents found out that I had a boyfriend that wasn't Muslim. Um, yeah, a lot of stuff went down and I left home. I went to be with him and then he reverted to Islam, got in contact with my family, and then there was the element of being pressured into the marriage because we were both Muslim at that point. Yeah, and then we got a divorce when I was 21, and now I am just living my life free as a free brown woman.
That's exactly what we want. So the way this interview is going to go is we both have 5 questions written for each other. We've not seen them, and we're just going to pull them out and just ask them. So I'll start with you. I'll ask you the first question.
Okay.
Oh, I should have had these laid out. Okay. Do you feel you lost your identity when you left home?
That's a really difficult one because I felt like growing up, I didn't really know. I was trying to find my identity. I didn't really know where I fit in because I was going to a school which was majority white people, non-Muslim, not really religious. And then at home, I grew up a lot with my grandparents who are really religious and traditional. So growing up, trying to fit yourself into that was really, really difficult. And then when I left home, I kind of felt in that moment that I could just breathe and I had the time to find that out. And I didn't know it there and then, but I knew that now I didn't feel pressure from each side, from society and also from my home to kind of figure it out. So I wouldn't say that, did you say that I lost
Yeah,
my
you lost your identity. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I felt like I lost my identity. I felt like at that time I was given an opportunity to kind of figure it out, you know?
Yeah, I like that actually. I like that answer. That's good. Yeah, I'm satisfied with
So,
that.
your question. Okay. Okay, so what was your plan once you knew what you were getting into and you kind of knew what was going to happen to you? Like, what was your first initial thoughts after seeing what happened to your
Yeah.
siblings?
Um, I'll be honest, I felt hopeless. And because at home, we weren't even allowed out. We were always at home. It was either school or home. So I thought it was hopeless. And so I just slowly attempted suicide.
Yeah.
I just thought there's no point in living because it didn't feel like it was my life and it didn't feel like there was a way out.
Yeah.
And so I attempted suicide. I think it was around 18, a bit younger than that actually. It was drinking bleach, toilet bleach, and
Mm.
overdosing on paracetamol.
Yeah.
Neither of them worked. And then eventually I realized that this isn't working, so I might as well actually try and get help. So I reached out to some charities, none of which had ever had a male victim come to them before.
Really?
So yeah, so it was a very unique situation. So I just slowly came up with a plan of applying to university behind my parents' back, getting the full funding so I can leave home, and just saving up money and then eventually leaving home and sleeping at work for 2 months.
And just to go more into that as well. So you said that when you first realized that this was going to happen to you, you contemplated, well, you did attempt to take your own life. And then when you reached out to these charities and various organizations, then is that when you realize that actually there is another option, and that is to leave home? So before, you kind of didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel in
Yeah,
any way, shape, or form.
yeah, I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. You're right. And with the charities, it made me feel more hopeless.
Oh,
That's all it
really?
was. Yeah, because they it didn't seem like they really had any help for me, because there weren't
Yeah.
any male refuge centers that I could go to or anything. So all it did was just make me think more, how can I actually escape? So the plan was then to just get out the house, because I realized it was the house that was making me feel like that. The
Yeah.
environment, yeah. But yeah. Moving to the next question, just suddenly. Do. Okay. Do you feel your family will come back round to will come back round with you, like with everything that you've been through and stuff? Because obviously in the South Asian community, divorce is a bit of a big thing.
Yeah, so right now I actually have a good relationship with the majority of people in my family. There was a time when, that was, it seemed like it would be impossible, especially when I left home. So it wasn't really the divorce that was the thing that kind of broke our relationship down. I think when the divorce happened, they could kind of appreciate that I had tried. I tried to do it the way that they wanted to. And even though, they are stubborn, they didn't really want to admit that. And also, they didn't really admit how hard it was for me in that situation. Because at the end of the day, I look back now, and at the time, I felt like I was an adult, but I was just a child. I was like 16, 17. I'd grown up in like cotton wool, and I just
Mm.
wanted to break out of that. And I think that the time when the relationship fully broke down is when they found out that I wasn't this really good Muslim child. I wasn't practicing my religion in the way that they would like me to. And I was kind of experimenting, trying to find my identity, see where I fit in. And they didn't like that. And they didn't like things I was doing, because it didn't align with their religious beliefs.
Mm.
That's really what broke the relationship down. And I think now, even though we do have a relationship, it's hard for me to ever think that they will see me in a different way, if that makes sense. I'll
Yeah,
always feel like the bad one of the family, and the one, all the names that they called me. I will still always feel like they have that opinion of me, um, if that makes sense.
that does make sense. Like the
Yeah.
black sheep, essentially. Well, that's a nice way of saying it. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, fair. Yeah, I like
Um,
that answer.
okay. Okay, so what people say in our community is a huge thing. Have you had any contact with your extended family? And if not, how has that affected you, now and also at the time?
So yeah, in our community, it's a big thing. Like whatever you do, everyone's watching. So when I left home, I knew my parents were going to get more hell than I did.
Yeah,
I was gone. I was away from everyone, and so for the next 4 years, I was on my own. So I didn't really care about what anyone had to say,
yeah,
and nor did I want to. But funny enough, like distant relatives like got in contact with me and actually were telling me what I was doing was right and what my parents did was wrong, which shocked me. I actually was expecting more backlash. But
yeah,
in terms of my own family, my parents have officially cut me off, and my older two brothers and my sister, who's 2 years younger, have cut me off as well. So from my
yeah.
direct family, yeah, I am just a nobody. But it seems to everyone else what I've done is right, which is interesting. So,
And would they be kind of penalized for reaching out and having a relationship with you?
oh
From
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
definitely. I think that's why they're doing it, to just make my parents happy. They're still in that environment, so I think what they're thinking is getting, because as you know, in our culture, like getting beat is seen as is celebrated. Like if you hit your child, it means I love them.
yeah,
So I think
yeah.
in their head, they're still with that mindset of, oh, it was love what my parents were doing. It was discipline. It was good.
Yeah,
But
that's the thing, is like, whenever you hear these stories, I'm sure when you were growing up, about other cousins that did this and did that, oh my God, think of the poor parents. Like the poor parents have to deal with this, like
yeah,
poor them. And I guess in a way your extended family is very conscious of your feelings, but also respectful towards your parents in a way.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because they've reached out to me saying what I'm doing is good. So I doubt they've reached out to my parents saying what they did was bad.
Really?
Well, I think my parents have kept their heads down because you know in our community,
Yeah.
once your name is tarnished, that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but yeah, let me again moving swiftly to the next question. Oh, okay, here we go. Have you or do you suffer from any mental health problems since leaving home or before leaving home?
Yeah, so I have struggled with depression since I was like 11. And I think that what that was growing up, like I said before, trying to find my identity and not being able to know where I fit in. My mum left when I was 3 as well, and my dad was really young, so I lived with my grandparents for the majority like of my childhood. Um, my problem was that always feeling like I wasn't good enough and having this drilled into me constantly, like, you're not doing the right thing. This is right, this is wrong. As you know, with religion, it is very much that way if you are born as a Muslim in a South Asian household. So I always had these feelings of never ever being good enough. And then when everything went down with my family and my decisions were not respected, again, it was, you're not good enough. We're not even going to attempt to understand where you're coming from. I never had that safe place as a child to ever speak to anyone about anything. And only now am I realizing how important that was and how isolated I was as a child. I didn't have anybody to speak to. So at 11, I had to see a counselor in school because I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't know what depression was either. So what was happening to me was really confusing, having like really, really bad thoughts and everything like that. And then just growing up, like it's never gone away. There's like now it's way more manageable, but sometimes I'll just have episodes where the smallest thing can trigger me and it just brings back that feeling and I just spiral like way out of
Mm,
control. And I think most of that is due to like religious trauma and just having this feeling of like you are going to have like the worst thing ever happen to you if you do this. And psychologically, as a child, like having to hear that constantly and never being praised. I don't know if you were ever praised as a
no, no,
child
no.
growing up,
It's
but
very similar, yeah, to what you're going through.
never ever praised. Even like when I would have parents' evenings and everything was good and everything was great, it still wasn't good enough. And the only
Exactly.
praise I was getting was from friends, like making friends happy, making friends laugh, and being stupid, and like having to overcompensate for being sad. And that was the only praise I was getting back, is that like validation from them, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So yeah, it definitely affected me throughout my whole entire life.
Yeah. I want to answer that question just because if
Yeah.
men are watching this, I want them to know. But like very similar to yours, where not feeling good enough. But I would say around 14 or 15, I would say I think I suffered from some form of depression because
Yeah.
I didn't think, I'm not gonna lie to you, I just thought life was just very crap. Like, and I thought that was it for us, like as a brothers and sisters, that this is all life's gonna be. We have to do as we're told. We're just robots. And then when attempting suicide, I just thought, I genuinely thought that was the best way out. But
Yeah.
when going to uni, that's when like the realization came into play that it is your environment that has a huge impact on you.
Yeah.
And what do you call it? You should always, I truly believe you should always go where you celebrate and not where you tolerate it. And you should always look within because I would say I've managed to now got my mental health good, but that's because I've gone to counseling. I think in the South Asian community, we all need to go counseling because our parents
For
have
sure.
diddly dude. Yeah.
And also just talking about mental health in the South Asian community, especially in a religious community, it's not really a thing.
Mm,
Um, if you ever talk about wanting to commit suicide or having suicidal thoughts, that's seen as a fault within you rather
Mm,
than something that you need help for, which is really, really dangerous. Because
definitely.
then it just reinforces that you're not good enough and this is your fault. And the reason why you're feeling like this is because of you. And then you start to believe those things. And then the only out you see is to like not be here anymore, you know. It's not leave your situation because you believe it's you.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing with me was that it was the same as what you're saying. When I was attempting suicide, I didn't want to die. I actually just wanted attention. I just wanted someone to help.
Yeah,
And I noticed that when I was going to uni, I was getting in relationships with the wrong people that actually kind of, now that I look back on it, reminded me of my dad, lacked emotion, lacked anything, and didn't really compliment or anything. So yeah, it is interesting. And yeah, I'm glad I asked you that question. So yeah.
is it my turn? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. um okay, so had this been, this whole life has been fed to you since your childhood, so you've seen your siblings, you know, go down this route. And when was it that you realized that this is something that you completely didn't relate to? And what was that because? Was that because like in school your peers, you saw, okay, well this isn't normal, or was it something else?
Ooh, that's a good question. For me, it was so whenever my dad would hit me, even from a young age, I always said to myself, and I remember being a child and I would say this, that I'm never going to do that to my kids. And it
Mm.
wasn't until I got older where I realized that I'm justifying him beating me. I would say it to people, I'd be like, no, my dad had a reason to hit me. But I would
Yeah,
then add on to it that, oh, but I would never hit anyone. And so
yeah,
it's that slow realization that this is wrong, what they're doing. And that
yeah,
if I'm not going to do it to my kids, why should it be done to me? But I would also say my other South Asian friends, they told me that their dads never hit them. And that's when I started to think, oh, so this isn't normal. This isn't our community thing.
yeah,
Uh, and our religion, Islam, is a very peaceful religion. In the Quran, it even says not to hit your child. So then I was just seeing that there are flaws here, that none of this seems to add up. And then it just didn't make sense with my dad thing. None of it seemed to add up. It was definitely a personal thing of his, which I slowly
yeah,
saw as I got older.
yeah.
I hope that answered your question. I don't know if I cut
Oh
it
yeah,
short.
yeah, yeah. It did
Yeah.
answer my question.
What about yourself?
um I think probably because I went to a majority white school and not religious.
Mm,
None of the people I knew were religious. And when I went to school, there was an Asian community in the school and they were Muslim. I just completely didn't relate to them at all. And it's because they reflected my family's views, but probably like 10 times more extreme.
mm,
And they were so judgmental, so judgmental. And that's the point when I realized like this isn't what I want to be. I don't want to be like this, and I don't want to even try to fit in with these people. But then at home, my family will be like, you have too many white friends. You need to be friends with more Asians, with more Muslims. But then, and that's when I started to hate being a Muslim. And that's when I thought that that was the problem, is the religion. Because I was
mm.
like, this isn't, this religion that you say is peaceful is anything but. This is making me angry. It's making me depressed. I don't fit in anywhere. Everything I'm doing is wrong. I feel unwanted. And I think that's when I knew that like this isn't me. This, and it's not
Mm.
right as well. Is when I was like in high school, when I first started high school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, fair. It is like that, isn't it, in our community? Like we seem to preach a lot, but we don't practice what we preach. And it is
Yeah.
that it's our culture has ruined the religion so badly, I would say. Like,
Yeah. And you know, like, so I saw a video and it was like, what's the worst thing about Islam? And these girls were like Muslims. And you know what? It's so true. It is true. The
I agree.
worst thing is Muslims, because now that I have like reconnected with Islam and I'm actually reading things, I'm so confused as to why we are taught this when we're young. It has no correlation. Like anything that I'm learning now has got nothing to do with what I was taught when I was growing up. And it's not about right, wrong, right, wrong. You're gonna die in the worst possible way if you do this. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me now looking back, and how all of that could have been avoided. if I was just
Yeah.
taught the right way, you know?
No, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I've got a question, but it's a very long one. Okay.
Okay.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself, or what would you change?
This is a really, really hard question for me because now I try not to look back at the past because it was just such a messy, like emotional time for me. So it's really difficult to see if I would change anything because of where I am now and like who I am as a person. But I think one thing that I never did was like be proud of myself or like cut myself some slack in those moments that were the darkest moments for me, and realizing now that yeah, I didn't have any safe place to go and I had no one to talk to and I did this all alone. And I feel like the one thing I would do is like really back myself and be proud of myself as that little
Yeah.
girl, because at the time I was like, I'm so bad, I'm so bad, I'm so bad. Like this is happening to me because I'm bad. And even getting out of that situation, it's hard to turn those feelings off because you're like, I'm
Mm,
out, but this has cost me everything. Is this my fault? That's something that's really hard even now to get
yeah,
over. But I think what I would say to myself is that like you are doing the right thing for you and this is only gonna, make you a better person and learn more about yourself. So that's probably the main thing that I would do.
definitely. No, I completely agree with you. Next
Your
question.
um, okay, so for you, what was, out of looking back, the hardest thing to deal with from the whole situation?
um, oh, actually, I'll tell you. It's only been this year. I think everything that I went through, I'm not gonna lie to you, when I look back on it, it felt like a film. I was like
Yeah.
sneaking in storeroom cupboards, I had to sneak out. I was like at uni, I was saving money, I was having fun, girls, food, and all that. But it wasn't until this year when I decided to go counseling, because I thought, yeah, there's obviously something mentally there. Because I noticed there would be streaks on my dad that I'd be that crawl into me. And when I was going to counseling and I was trying to sort all these things out, and I found out about abandonment issues that I suffer from, and like sort of a form of anxiety. And what was upsetting, that was the hard bit, because what was upsetting me was I didn't do any of this stuff. This was all my dad that did these
Mm.
things to me, and I have to fix the problems that he made. And I remember walking back on one counseling session being upset, thinking, why do I have to fix what he created? And it hurt a bit, because it was
Yeah.
hard, because it was like I was just a child. Like one thing my dad did to me was, as a punishment, I was 13. He took all my brothers and sisters out to a restaurant or somewhere, but he kept me at home.
Mm.
And then he would come back with everyone, and they would tell me about their day, but I didn't get to go. And another
Yeah.
thing was, he took my older two brothers out to buy clothes, and then he'd come into the living room in front of me and show the clothes that he got them. And so
Yeah.
it's things like these that he did to spite me. And I didn't remember this stuff until counseling. And then they brought it out, and I was like, that explains why I don't trust people, why when it comes to relationships, I'm very hesitant. I don't let anyone in easily. So it was
Yeah.
things like that where I've suffered. I've been held back most of my life because of things he did, not things that I did.
Yeah,
But
that's hard. And also having to kind of unpack everything as well, I guess, because sometimes you don't even realize like something that they did that may have seemed so small could be so huge now. Um and
exactly.
and you're still having to unpack that, and maybe we will for the rest of our lives, because obviously one day, if you want, like, both we will have children and stuff, and even just being around the younger generation and things like that, I think that these things definitely will affect you, the way that you live your life for the rest of your life. But also it's
Definitely.
important to remember that even though it's hard, you have to deal with that now. It is because of him and not because of you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I love every counseling session, even so. I'm grateful I've gone, and it's
Yeah.
hard, but it's so worth it. I'll say that, and I'm happy I'm sorting it out. I'll be honest. So, like, in case anyone's watching this, it's definitely worth it. It hurts, but it's like going to the gym. The weights are gonna hurt at first, and then eventually they get easier, and then you go up
Yeah.
a level. So it's definitely worth
It's
it.
just a huge investment in your mental health.
Oh, definitely. And like, because one day I do want kids, and I don't want to do whatever I went through, they're not going through, put it that way.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Is it, yes, me asking you a question?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, what was the thing? What was the one thing that kept you going through all, like, throughout your journey? Like, what was the one thing that gave you hope, that made you feel good, that made you keep pursuing what you were doing?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know how I did it because like the biggest feeling for me that was like kind of holding me back was still wanting this acceptance from my family. Like I really wanted that acceptance. And obviously I know, like knew at the time, okay, well, if I'm going to leave home and I'm going to be with this guy and I'm going to be like living my life, as an unmarried woman at the time, it's kind of unheard of to leave home. Um,
Hmm.
but I so wanted that acceptance. And in the back of my mind, I knew I was never going to get it. So I really don't know how I kind of stuck to my guns and like still carried on throughout the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? Um, I don't know. I guess it was God that like gave me the strength to get through it.
No, definitely. I want to answer this just because.
Yeah.
So for me, the day I left home, and same with you, it's like it's a big thing. It's scary. It's like this is going to change your life forever. There's no going back. And I was hesitant on the night before I was going to leave home, and I read this quote where it said, "When it's scary to jump, that's when you have to jump. Otherwise, you stay in the same place your entire life." So
Yeah.
that, and Selena Gomez, Who Says, that song, just like that. I'm telling you now, that was a banger. That kept me going. But I think also, what do you call it? Just I would say thinking of the future, seeing where I want to go, my goals. So what I want, and it's always been a goal of mine, even when I was getting abused at home, was to one day have kids and have a wife and live happily. And that's still the goal now. So whenever I'm like getting lost in today, I just think of that, and I'm like, right, this is all building up for that.
Yeah, I don't even think I had any goals. And I think that for anyone who's listening, I think that's really important to say because you might not even know what you want to do, but you just know in the moment that you have to get out there
Yeah,
or you have to make some kind of change, right? But you don't know where this is going. And I think it's just really important to kind of trust your gut instinct and just don't settle to be in that place. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to leave, but something has to change, right? Yeah, and just
agree.
don't be scared and just be strong in that moment.
No, I definitely agree. I just want to add one more thing. This is what I've learned in life. I personally feel life happens for you and not to you. And when you develop that mindset, things do tend to change.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, it's I think that's really important. I like what you said about go where you're celebrated and not tolerated. That's
Yeah.
huge because once you start to see that you're just being tolerated or not even tolerated at home, just knowing that there are places that you will be celebrated, I think that that can also give you some kind
Yeah.
of strength and hope that things can change and you don't have to be in that dark place forever, right?
Yeah, it applies to friendship groups as well. Don't If you know you're not supposed to be around certain friends or
Yeah.
this and that, like,
Yeah,
go, they don't
it
care.
applies to everything, I think.
Exactly.
Word,
Yeah.
anything. My turn.
Yes.
Okay, so this one might be a hard one. But if you could say one thing to your parents, hoping that they would listen with an open mind, what would it be?
Oh, that is good. With an just just know that I am still me. I've not changed since I left home. I still have the basic fundamental principles you gave me. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't sleep around or anything. But you just have to understand what I'm doing is right for me and my heart. It's not going against my religion. I just want to fall in love with someone, get married, and have kids. And
Yeah,
I think with an open mind, I'd hope they'd see that our culture is backwards, how we treat our women, how we view mental health, and how we twist our religion. So I think if they listen to that, hopefully they would understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. and hopefully they would actually look into themselves and think, yeah, maybe we were a bit too hard, or what we did was abuse.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, maybe they do know that, but they're just too proud to.
So, oh, certainly, certainly.
But also, just going back to that point, is do you think that the majority of things that happened to you when you were in that household were because of their beliefs in religion, like their religious beliefs?
No, no.
No.
My dad only became religious when his mum passed away, because my grandmother lived with us, and he was
Okay.
very close with his mum. No, my dad obviously had some mental health issues, definitely, because
Yeah.
there's a line of discipline and abuse, and what he was doing was above. Like, for example,
Oh
he
yeah.
would pick up the sharpest object in the room to beat us, and
Yeah.
he really went to town. He would punch. He would purposely go. It was like a bully, because he would pick on my nose. Like, I've got a beautiful nose now, but at the time he would say, "You got a big nose, and why do you have that nose?" And he would try and whack my head against the wall. Like, he really was a bit. There was obviously something there that wasn't right, because discipline is, I don't know, a light tap. Not, I'm not even justifying it, but like, to me, that would be discipline. If someone said, go to your room, or here's a light tap, I'm taking your phone away. But to really go in and punch a person that can't really fight back, has no muscle, it is abuse. So it was nothing
Yeah,
to do with religion.
100%. Yeah.
And it was more my dad than my mum. My dad just put pressure on my mum to put more discipline on us.
And also, if your mum seeing what your dad is capable of doing to children, I think that for her, maybe it was, you know, harder. And I think for a lot of people in this situation, it is harder for a woman who sees her husband as being abusive to kind of stand up. Although I'm not justifying it, and I do
No, no,
believe
no.
that,
I
you
know
know,
it.
as mothers, they should. And it, you know, I'd like to think if I was in that situation, I would never want, like, ever tolerate anyone speaking or making my children feel that way, forget touching them. But I also think in our culture, how difficult it is for those women, because then it will just happen to them, or where are they going to go? You know, where are they going to go?
Exactly. That's what I wanted to add
Divorce
on
is,
to that point. Yeah.
you know, yeah, divorce is seen as, you know, the worst thing.
It's, it's,
So
it's kind of non-existent in our culture anyway, isn't it? Like, it's just not even thought of it
yeah.
as an option.
Yeah, I
Um,
actually, oh wait, I don't know if you posted a TikTok about this, but I actually saw something that was women raise their sons to be the men that they never had. So that when they get married, they have such an issue with the wife, because this is the man they never had, and this is the man that they grew up to be, that the guy they always wanted. So they have this issue with their daughter-in-law. But then if you really think about that, is the only solution to break that cycle is to just marry who you want to marry, and not be forced into marriages that are going to make you happy for the rest of your life, that you can't get out of. And then you're continuing this cycle of raising a child to be what you wanted to have your whole life, and then causing problems when they decide to start their life with their family. And it's just this huge cycle of,
yeah,
you know. So
that
I
wasn't
thought that,
me, but just to let you know, that put up
no,
that TikTok. But that's a good point. Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting.
Um, no, is it me asking a question?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
your turn.
Oh, I think I've already asked this question, but I'll ask it again. How did you feel leaving home?
um I was scared. I kind of did, like, what happened was, my dad was married to a woman and she had a daughter. And for us both, you know, at that time we were both going through kind of a similar thing. But for me, I feel it was way harder because, one, I was older, and two, my dad's side is way more religious and cultural than hers. She's, you know, she's not South Asian.
Okay.
And there was a lot of tension between us, because I needed someone to be there for me, but because she was kind of getting it easier, I guess she didn't really want to, you know, stick up for me or be there for me, because it was a hard situation to be in. And in no way do I ever blame her for that, because I can understand that, you know, she was looking out for herself. It was a hard place to live. And one day she just said to me, well, if you don't like it, just leave. And then I was like, okay. And that was it. And then I was like, okay. And then I just left. And it was just, no one had ever said to me before, you need to leave. It was more like, I don't want anything to do with you. You're the worst child I've ever had, blah, blah, blah. You're a slut, you're a whore, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. But no one had ever said, well, just leave then. So when she said that, I was like, actually, I can. I actually can just leave. So I will. And I left. And the first feeling I felt was a huge feeling of relief. But then as time went on that day, it was just, I was getting more and more scared of like, you know, them trying to get in contact with me or trying to bring me home, or, you know, the rest of my family finding out. And because it's such a huge thing, you know, she's left home and she's kind of chosen this life over this life, over, you know, we know what's best for her. We've loved her whole life. And she's choosing to not accept this and not be grateful for this and choosing to leave. So yeah, I was scared. But then I think, you know, each day goes by and you feel something different, but the feeling that stayed consistent was, I have done the best possible thing for me. So I think there was a lot of emotions, but just knowing that I was out of that situation because it made me so unhappy was, yeah, what I felt.
No, it is hard, isn't it? One of those situations.
Okay, so what were your thoughts as you were going through, this is kind of the same question, what were your thoughts as you were going through the process? Were any of them to accept like what your family wanted, or just completely get out? Like, did you ever have moments of being like, this is going to be too hard, shall I just do what they say? Did you ever feel that way?
I tried to. That hence why the suicide attempts came, because I tried to be what they wanted, and you just don't get praise. I got 4 A stars at A level, and it was never good enough. So it was I tried my best, and it wasn't good enough. So I felt like I was bleeding myself for them, and it didn't work. So that's why I stopped. That's why I was just like, I've got to do what's right for me. And I've always loved the idea of having a wife and kids in the future. And if I want that, I know it can't be with my family. I know that unfortunately, I know my mum and dad can't go near that side, just because, well, I know what they'd be thinking, I know what they'd be feeling, and I don't know what they would say, but I wouldn't want to know, nor would I want to care. So no, I did try. It didn't work. So now I just do it for me, and it feels right. It feels good to do.
At no point did you ever think, I should even consider a marriage proposal from them?
I did a bit. I did think about it a bit, and it was just, the idea just didn't make me happy. The idea of being in a bed with another woman that I have no connection with, that I'd have to force myself to like. Because it just wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be organic. So no, the idea of it was just, it would put me off. So no, the answer is no. I love the idea of leaving home, meeting someone, treating them well, showing them who I am, and eventually getting married. But yeah, that idea of just marrying who they wanted, the idea of it does make me ill.
I just don't understand, like, for me, it's so difficult to kind of understand how someone could present to you a person and say, I think that this person is going to be the perfect person for you, based off, they probably don't even know you as their own child. In some situations, they probably don't even know your personality, because how many people in these situations have relationships with their family, with their mum and dad, who know what they like, who know what they don't like. So I don't understand how they can find someone based off very little information that will be perfect for you, and then think that you will live a lifetime of happiness with that person. Or do they even want you to be happy, or do they just want you to be,
it's keeping up appearances?
yeah, to just shut up and deal with it. And
Exactly.
then they
And
want,
sorry, I cut you
no,
off.
and then they want grandkids, and I just don't understand why. Like, none of it makes sense to me. Why would you not prefer your child to go out and find someone, to meet the wrong person and realize what they don't want, meet another person and think, yeah, maybe this person is for me, and then finally meet the right person and then marry that person and know that you probably will have, you know, years of happiness together. I
Exactly.
just, it doesn't make
I
sense
mean,
to me.
yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. But like that, and I just want to clarify one thing, because this is what everyone was commenting on that TikTok, saying that a forced marriage and an arranged marriage are two different things. They are completely. An arranged marriage is where the parents would be like, "Oh, what do you think of so and so?" And you'd be like, "Oh, yeah," or "No," and you'd have the freedom to leave. But in my case, I would never have got that option. It would have been,
Yeah.
that's her, deal with it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, like we said before, that the spectrum of this is so large. Like, mine was, it wasn't forced, it wasn't arranged, but it was pressured because of religion and like you said, keeping up appearances. And, you know, they don't want to see me with someone who's non-Muslim, and, you
Yeah.
know, so they don't want anyone else to see it. And I think that if they really just sat down and thought about the situation, they wouldn't care. It's just what other people are going to see if they ever see me out with this person or whatever.
Exactly.
um which, I don't know, for me that's wild. It's just wild that that just that has affected my life now in such a huge way, when it
Yeah.
all could have been avoided, and now we have to deal with all of this stuff now because of that.
Completely. Well, but it's conversations like these which are helping, certainly, and there's obviously other people that are feeling this way. Hence why you and I put TikToks up, which have done very well, and people are asking for
Yeah.
help. I have no more questions. I've asked you all the questions I have.
Okay.
But no, this has been great, and I've really appreciated this. So
Me too. No,
yeah,
it's been
thank you
good.
so much.
Been
And
good to talk, and then also obviously see, yeah, like I said, that it's not just one way. And for people who are watching, I think it's really important to know that just if you are unhappy, then that's valid. And don't think that because your parents are presenting you 10 people and you've got a choice, but if this makes you unhappy, then that's valid. And you don't have to be grateful for that. If you are unhappy in that situation, then that's, you know, it's 100% valid, and it's 100% normal for you to
com-
feel that way.
completely agree. Actually, I want to add one thing, and this is something in the South Asian community. When someone does the basics, they seem to get praised. Like, for example, my dad drove me at night to college, and to him, that was the greatest thing that he's ever done. He was doing the basics as a dad, and I want other South Asians to know that just someone doing the basics, they don't need to get praised for it. That's their duty as a parent, to care, to love. Your partner's duty is to love you and to accept you for who you are. If they don't do those things, they shouldn't be praised for it.
Yeah, that's a huge thing in our culture, is that
Definitely.
when you are having these conversations with your parents or the people who are looking after you, your guardians, and they use this manipulation to make you feel guilt, to make you feel like you're not grateful, it's it's just completely insane. It's, those people are there to look after you. Those people are there. They have a responsibility to give you a safe place, to put a roof over your head. You're not privileged um, with having a roof over your head, in the sense of you were born because of them, and they decided to become parents, and they have a responsibility. And yeah, I think that's a huge thing in our culture, is feeling guilty for existing.
It's completely. I think we're going to leave it on that. I feel like we'll go off on a bigger tangent. But no,
Yeah.
thank you again, Maz. It's been great.
No, thank you.
And I will leave all your social media links in the description. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you again.